Hey, you guys.
What's
If
up?
anybody's there, I don't know if anybody's there because I don't see any chat yet,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean. So maybe I'm talking to nobody. Hi, nobody. What are you up to today? But yeah, so here we are, and it's Sunday, and we're talking about a movie. Oh, I wanted to mention, because I didn't actually notice this until after we did finish doing the sidetrack show on Friday night, but we actually finally broke 13,000 subscribers.
Yeah. No,
So
we got a lot of people in there. About 11 of them.
I only just noticed.
Yeah, they're all piling in.
So, does Tawny get nude in this flick?
Yes.
Briefly.
Yes.
You can't see a lot of it, because I was reading about kind of some of the background, like, around this movie and stuff, and she really was uncomfortable, like, filming the shower scene that's in this.
Yeah. She comes running out of the shower. The ghost was getting her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though she posed for Playboy and stuff like that, but I don't know if that was after this or before this. Because this, I didn't even realize this, because I remember seeing this movie. I don't think I saw it in the theater. Maybe I did. But I saw it like a bunch of times on cable back in the 80s. And I could have sworn that this was post-Whitesnake videos. But no, this was before the Whitesnake videos that made her like super famous. That was like, because that was until 87 and this came out in 86.
Yeah, the draw of this movie is Tawny Kitaen. All right. And
Pretty much.
If you guys don't know who that is, when we were kids coming up in the heavy metal scene, she was on album covers and rock stars knew her, and
Yeah, she
was
dated a few.
Yeah, she was on the album cover of Rat. She's on the first Rat album cover. She was David Coverdale's ex-wife, I believe. They were married.
Yeah, they were married a couple of years.
They were married a couple of years. And who she was, man, was kind of interesting. She was this Jewish American chick, like what they called a Jap, a Jewish American princess. She was from a real nice Jewish family, and she kind of ran away to go run off with rock stars. But she wasn't a girlfriend per se. She was a player in the old metal scene out in L.A. I'd probably put her at like not really a manager, but like an agent. She had connections. If she liked you, she could get you hooked up and get you signed on a record label. She was good at spotting talent. If she picked you, you were gonna be fucking famous. You know, you were probably gonna get signed. But she was hot. You know, she was very much 80s hot. That's what they were looking for back then. She was today. I'd say they were a little too skinny by today's standards. Kind of tall and thin. But still, even today, I'd probably say she's probably about a 9 out of 10. She was cute.
The thing about, well, I looked up because I was kind of curious because I kind of remember her being generally around, and you know, I remember seeing her in this movie, and I remember seeing her in the videos and her being on album covers and stuff. She actually didn't get started. She actually got started as a TV actress, so I guess she was like on TV, and then
so
she
did
was
that first. Okay.
Yeah, and then she was in Bachelor Party with Tom Hanks, like in 1984.
Okay.
So she actually started doing that. I didn't really see, and then like later on in the 2000s, she had a lot of drug abuse problems, and so she ended up being on like reality shows, like The Surreal Life and Celebrity Rehab and all that kind of stuff. I didn't see him either, but that's what I looked up.
I don't think that's a good representation of who she was, though. She wasn't a drug abuse chick. That's just how it went eventually. She was kind of a lot like me and Jenny's friend Imani. She was, you know, Imani is a girl we know, and Jenny has worked with her. And she basically made a whole bunch of black metal bands, you know. She like a talent scout, kind of like that. But when you see this movie, you'll see that Tawny was talented in her own right too. You know, she was a talented chick, but she was kind of like the 80s fucking cougar. You know, she's much older than you think she is when you look at her. She looks young. I think even in this movie, she's probably in her mid to late 30s, but she looks like she's in her 20s.
She just died a couple of years ago, like in 2021.
But when she was in her late 30s, early 40s, she was, you know, cougering her ass off on these looking young metal guys. You know, that's just who she was. She was cool, real cool. I also heard that, you know, if you crossed her, she could destroy your career too. She Yeah, fucking, she had power. She had power, social power.
Senor Stick says, Jenny, where did you get a creep show sweater? It's not like exactly a sweater. It's just like a long sleeve shirt. I actually got it at FYE at the mall.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. They had a bunch of different ones. I have a bunch of different ones like from the same company. Like I have a Creature from the Black Lagoon one. I have a Cthulhu one. I have a Halloween one. I have a lot of different ones. And have we reviewed the Waxworks series? We have not, but I would like to at some point because I actually really do like those movies. This movie, like I said, it's weird because I was watching something earlier and I knew that it had sequels. It actually has 2 sequels, which, as far as I know, don't really have anything to do with this one. Because this one, the end of this one does kind of set it up like, ooh, could be a sequel, you know what I mean? I didn't think that I had seen the second one, but then when I was watching another review of the 3 movies, I saw clips from the second one, and I'm like, oh, wait, that looks kind of familiar. Maybe I did see that, although I literally can't remember anything else about it. I've heard that it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's like a remake of the first one, but it's just like a really, really similar story. The third one, they said, goes off in like crazy directions. Some people like it, some people don't. This movie, I feel like this has wildly mixed reviews. It was kind of like, it was really successful when it came out in 1986. I mean, probably because it only cost like $1 million to make and made like several times that back. But, I mean, it didn't get great critical reviews, but it kind of steadily got a cult following like over the years. But even nowadays, I kind of like, it's all the different horror channels I watch, they're about evenly divided. Like some of the people really, really like this and it's like, oh, it's underrated, nobody talks about it anymore. And then I saw a couple that are like, yeah, I really hate this movie. But it's tonally very, very strange, like especially for an 80s movie. And I had forgotten about that because I saw this movie easily a dozen times back in the 80s, probably more, and I might have seen it in the theater.
The problem with it is it's a slow starter. It starts off kind of boring and slow. First 15 minutes of it, I think.
There is a lot of setup, and it's long for a horror movie. Yeah. It's like an hour and 45 minutes.
But as it goes on, it gets better, and then you start kind of appreciating it. What's different about it is that it's a horror movie, but it's a lot like a haunting episode. It's about a paranormal investigation, really, and it's got some balls when it comes to the script. I mean, they'll have a decent character, or a character that's very interesting, and then they'll kill that character off. They'll kill off a lead character, and
which they did in this one.
Yeah, which they normally didn't do back in the 80s. So it's just kind of, and then it kind of goes cerebral and emo about relationships, and then it also gets kind of like it's weird. It's not your normal 80s horror flick.
It's really not.
No, it's good though. It's kind of like Exorcist, kind of like Amityville Horror. And what else? I don't know, man. There's no way to describe it. It's its own thing.
Yeah, like I said, I had forgotten. I mean, like I said, I saw it a bunch of times back in the 80s and early 90s, but I hadn't seen it for probably 30 years. And so I was really interested to watch it again because I remember really liking it, like back then, and it being like, one that stood out to me. And I had forgotten just what a strange, I don't know, I don't want to like oversell that, but it is like kind of tonally odd.
Yeah, it is.
You know what I mean? It's in the sense that it's more character driven than your average kind of like movie from that era and that's about this would suggest.
It's definitely trying to be its own franchise.
Yeah. Well, I guess it kind of succeeded because there were 3 of them.
There were 3 of them. It's trying to put itself apart from the horror movies of the 80s. And it did. I didn't see this in the 80s when it came out. I probably would have liked it. But no, it's is it good? Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I still liked it.
It's good. I mean, you have to see it. It's different because we're of the right generation where this was actually intended for us. It was intended for Gen X. So I understand what they were trying to do. I would have liked it in 87. But I didn't see it. I would have liked it though.
I had just forgotten how heavily invested in the love triangle.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not like it's not like a romance or anything, but it does go very much into the characters and their relationship with one another. And that's like a big part of the plot. Like, yeah, there's supernatural stuff and yeah, there's horror stuff like toward the end, but it really seems to focus. And Kevin Tenney, like the guy that wrote and directed it, who, fun fact, a couple years after this would do the classic Night of the Demons with Linnea Quigley. Yeah. This was actually the first movie that he'd done. He was, I think, still in film school when he wrote this. And he actually got the idea. If you've seen the movie, there's like a scene toward the beginning of the film, might be this first scene, where, Tawny is at a party, or she's having a party, like at their apartment, and a bunch of people are there, and her friend / ex-boyfriend Brandon has brought a Ouija board, and he's just being very self-important and mansplaining about it. And so they like start using it, and Kevin Tenney said that he got the idea for the movie like when he was at a party where that actual thing happened. You know what I mean? Like the way you see it in the movie. They like, we were communicating with somebody on the Ouija board, and then like the ghost seemed like it got mad, and then somebody's tire popped outside. You know what I mean? Or somebody's tire got flat. So it's like, apparently this really happened in real life to him, and that's what gave him the idea.
Somebody's saying this looks like a straight-to-DVD movie. No. In this era, a lot of the movies that you would see, at the Dollar Theater, that were horror movies, which are lower budget, they just look like this. The difference with this one is that it is trying to be taken a little bit more seriously. It's not going the Evil Dead route, but it is kind of budget-wise like that. It's trying to get you to take it seriously, kind of like it was The Exorcist.
It does take itself very seriously, and I think maybe that's why, because the subject matter of it is supernatural, and then it also has like weird comedic things in it, like the girl that plays the psychic, who's just this kind of crazy, like over the top sort of character.
She was cute. I like that girl.
Yeah, I did too. But she was in Roadhouse too, actually.
Okay.
But she's been in loads of things, but I remembered her from Roadhouse. She played Carrie, I think.
Yeah.
And the friend of Jim, the guy that one of the main characters in the thing, and he's kind of like funny. You know what I mean? Like, do you see spaz written on this man anywhere? So it's like they have like little comedic things that are kind of like over the top, but then like the rest of it is like really, really serious. Like it's trying to take itself really seriously. Yeah. And to some extent, I don't know, it seems a little strange, but I think it does work. One thing that's interesting about this movie that I kind of realized again when I was watching it is that the character of Brandon, who's actually played by Stephen Nichols, and if you've seen this movie, you will probably not be surprised to know that he's like a soap opera actor. He was on like Days of Our Lives and General Hospital and stuff, because he comes across like very soap opera-y. So when you see him at the beginning, he's the one that like introduces the Ouija board concept, and like I said, he's such a actually motherfucker, and he's just like very, very condescending, and he's just very, it's pronounced Ouija, like he's very much like that, and I'm just like, oh my god, I just want to punch this dude right in the dick. But like as the movie goes on, you actually start liking him, which I didn't think was possible because he's so insufferable, like at the beginning of the movie. But then like as the movie goes on and the relationships between him and Jim deepen, and you're kind of like, oh, maybe he's all right. You know what I mean? Like maybe I just got a bad impression of him at the beginning, because one of the things that's kind of central to the plot is that the two main guys, whose names are Jim and Brandon, Jim is with Tawny now, like, they're boyfriend and girlfriend, but she dated Brandon before. But Jim and Brandon were friends from childhood, and I guess when Jim, quote unquote, stole Tawny from Brandon, then they had this huge falling out, and now they're just, every time they're in the same room together, they just like snipe at each other like little bitches. Yeah. So there's a lot of that going on. And then like toward the end, like they finally reconcile after, Tawny gets possessed by the demon from the Ouija board, and they have to kind of like join forces to like save her. You know what I mean? So I kind of like that it was that character focus. I can see how, because I was watching this one review that were like, they thought it was just like really, really boring. And they were like older guys too. So it wasn't just like, 20-year-olds or something like that. But So I can kind of see that. If you're kind of expecting more of like a just real over-the-top gory, special effects heavy, stuff like that, like a lot of stuff in the 80s was, this is not really like that. Like you said, it's almost like a little more cerebral. I don't want to go like, oh, it's elevated horror or anything like that, but it is trying to take itself really seriously.
For a low-budget movie.
And it is like trying to focus more on the relationships between the characters rather than like crazy supernatural shit. Now, I'm not saying that there's not crazy supernatural shit in there. There is, but it doesn't go too weird.
It's just, I don't know. It's kind of like a mixture of Evil Dead, Exorcist, and what's the one with the damn puzzle box and the Hellraiser, kind of like that. That's how I'd kind of put it, because Hellraiser kind of took itself seriously in those days. A lot of other horror movies were kind of cartoon. It's like watching a damn cartoon.
Yeah, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's like
they're fun. We loved it.
Yeah,
we loved it. Yeah, like fucking Reanimator, the whole Reanimator series. That was like watching a cartoon.
Yeah,
but it was great, because it was just instant bang for your buck. It's not like that. That's in it. That kind of stuff. You can tell that that's what kind of movie it is. But they're trying to be a little bit more cerebral, like an expensive movie. Which, okay, that's how they did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, because it was successful, like, this was really, I mean, Kevin Tenney's first movie that he had ever written and ever directed. So, I mean, it could have been a lot worse, that's for sure.
What surprised me is that Tawny could act.
She was good. She's not bad. I will say that I think the acting in this is a little, like, from pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
It's a little stilted.
Yeah.
It's a little, you know what I mean? A little bit.
Well, a lot of it has to do with the edit. It was just kind of fucking edited together to be a certain way. But I think she shines in it, though. She's one of the better performers in it. The guys are okay. Like you said, it's a little uneven at times, but kind of like something up, like TV level actors,
Well, that's, I think, like I said, the guy that played Brandon was a soap opera actor.
Right, yeah.
And it does kind of come off a little bit like that.
Still, that's pretty good, because in a lot of horror movies from this era, they weren't actors at all. It was just somebody's friend.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
That had nice tits or something.
Yeah. But
at least they're trying in this one.
Sure. And even the psychic chick, which I liked that character.
Yeah. I mean, it's over the top. It's over the top for sure.
But she was a fun character, and they killed her off rapidly.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh man, I thought she was going to be like a main character in this now.
Yeah, I mean, she comes in with like crazy like new wave hair and like the glasses, and she's constantly like clattering because she has like a fringe jacket and like all this jewelry and stuff like that. And just the way she talks is like fucking. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. But it's like it's borderline annoying, but also kind of entertaining also. You know what I mean? Because she is a likable character, and everyone else is like being so serious that it's kind of like a breath of fresh air, like when she comes in there.
Yeah.
And like starts being, but I don't know. I kind of feel like how you feel about it is like, I don't know. It's just like on the edge of annoying. It's just on the edge of annoying. You know what I mean? Like she can get kind of annoying. I don't think she was as annoying to me as the cop character. The one that was like, the first guy that dies in the movie, whose name is Lloyd, who's like a friend of Jim's.
Oh, the cop guy. Yeah.
Lloyd gets killed when like some sheetrock or something like that, like fall, like because him and Jim work on a construction site, and the sheetrock falls on him. Now the ghost actually kills him, like we know that. But, everybody else just thinks it's an accident. But for some reason, this cop does not think it's an accident because, like, oh, well, the rope that was holding up the sheetrock, like, was cut, looked like cut with a hatchet, blah, blah, blah. So he seems to suspect that Jim, like, murdered his best friend. So he keeps popping up, and every single time he pops up, he talks about magic tricks. That's kind of his thing. And I don't know. I think after a while, it gets, like, a little tedious. And plus at one point, did you notice that at one point he said, when he was talking about, hey, out in Vegas they have that show, that he says Sigmund and Roy.
Yeah.
And I said, it's Siegfried. It's Siegfried and Roy, right? And I was like, were they just not allowed to say Siegfried and Roy? Mm-hmm. Or did they just not know that was that guy's
Probably
name?
weren't allowed to say it.
I don't know why. I don't think that would be. Well, okay. So the thing about that, the reason why this movie is called Witchboard is because they were actually going to call it Ouija, which, you know, obviously much later they did do a movie just called Ouija. They were just going to call it that, but apparently, is it Parker Brothers or whoever who owns they kind of were like, and actually the makers of Witchboard, I guess, like I said, they're indie filmmakers. Maybe they didn't know any better, but they shot like most of the movie with the whole like Parker Brothers Ouija board, blah, blah, blah thing, without getting permission to use that name. Maybe it didn't occur to them that was like a trademark. So yeah, so they actually kind of got in trouble, and they ended up having to pay like I think $50,000 or something like that, like to use it. And they're like, yeah, we would really rather you didn't call the movie Ouija, so they had to call it Witchboard. And I think at some point in the original cut of the movie, I think there was a scene where Brandon, the character Brandon, like says, oh, sometimes it's called a witchboard, but I think they took that out. So I don't even think they say the word in the movie. I mean, it's just clearly a Ouija board like you'd buy. There's a couple different ones. Here's one
hand-drawn ones.
Yeah, like the one toward the end was actually cooler because it was like kind of blue, and it looked like, because he had to go to like a witchcraft store and buy one. Yeah. One thing I didn't notice until I was
by some other heavy metal chick.
Yeah,
she knows that. It's probably one of Tawny's fucking girlfriends.
Probably. I mean, you know. One thing I didn't notice until I was watching like a couple breakdowns of this movie. I totally did not notice this, and I've seen this movie like a bunch of times. Is that depending on what's going on with the Ouija board, because there's lots of scenes of like Tawny, her character's name is Linda, but I just keep calling her Tawny, where she's using it, like talking to David, who is supposedly a 10-year-old boy, except most of the time it's like an evil spirit, and she doesn't know that. But so she's using it. Now, if good shit is happening, like she's actually talking to the 10-year-old boy, then there's like a little angel at the top of the Ouija board, and it looks like a little cherub or something like that. But if she's talking to like the evil spirit, then the angel is still there, but it has little demon wings, like little bat wings, and is making like a little frowny face. I
didn't notice that.
I didn't either, but then it's like I saw like somebody showed like clips of it, and I was like, holy shit, that was a nice like little detail. I never did notice that. And they said, yeah, probably most people didn't notice it. I'm like, you're right, I did not notice that.
Yeah.
Somebody said earlier that Howard Stern cheated with Tawny Kitaen. That's why he got divorced.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Do you know that during the filming of this movie, Tawny was also having an affair with O.J. Simpson.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Who was married at the time, obviously.
She was cute. I would say she was kind of like what was real popular in the 80s, which tended to be kind of tall and skinny. And those girls look good in clothes. She does take her clothes off. She's pretty stacked for a tall girl. I'd give her like an 80s 9. She'd had a 10. She'd have been an 80s 10 if she had two big old fake titties. If they were like beach balls, fucking that was like the fucking ultimate fucking look in the 80s for the heavy metal guys. The heavy metal guys loved that shit. Fucking like what was her name? Some of the porn star girls were like that, just skinny with big fake fucking implants. That was just the style, man. Turn around the back, they're flat as hell.
Ben says, Ouija isn't a real word. It is a composite of we, yes, in French,
yes.
and in German, yeah. Well, and actually they say that exact thing in this movie. So here's the thing. So all of these movies, like, use what I always thought was the correct pronunciation, which is Ouija. I have no idea why people started calling it a Ouija board. I'm like, that's an A at the end. That's not how we say A.
It's easier to say.
I guess.
It's easier to say.
It's like because it rhymes.
Yeah.
But yeah, but there is a scene very near the beginning of this where Brandon says that exact thing. He's like, Ouija. You know, that's how you pronounce it. Like I said, he's like super douchey about it.
Just fucking French, yes. And then, Ouija.
Yeah, so it should be Ouija, actually, technically.
Yeah.
So we're all pronouncing it wrong.
It's Parker Brothers, man. Parker Brothers trying to make a buck.
Yeah, they just made that word up.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't know, because the Parker Brothers one has been around a while, right? I feel
100
like
years, I would say.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
So did they like have a thing where they told people how to pronounce it?
No.
Did they get Ouija?
No.
I was like, where do they get Ouija? It doesn't even look like that. I don't know.
It's just it doesn't matter. That's just how
it really doesn't.
No.
But yeah, so this movie, I kind of feel like so one thing I wish they had done, I didn't mind the actor that played the cop, but I kind of wish they had toned down that whole every time it's like, oh, magic trick kind of. So they made an elephant disappear. Like every single time he shows up, because he's trying to like hint to Jim. It's like, hey, I think you're murdering people, even though it's a ghost. Spoiler alert. But every time he just kind of like uses this magic kind of simile, and it gets like really old.
Yeah.
So there's that. And I do. This doesn't have like a lot of gore in it. It doesn't have like a lot of special effects because, like I said, they didn't have a ton of money. But I wish they had done more with the evil spirit, the guy who's actually like haunting the board. Because it's not a demon. It's a guy who, when he was alive, was like an axe murderer or something, and he ended up like living in that same house that they lived in. And that guy that played him, I don't even think he was an actor. I think he was just like a photographer. He just like was on the crew or something. And they're like, hey, you look evil. Come here and like be in this movie. And like, I think he was in another movie called Witch Trap as well, which is kind of like this one. But I wish they had done more with him because he was so cool looking. Like he really looked like an evil he almost had like an Angus Scrim type thing going on. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I kind of feel like I wish they had done more with that because the whole premise of this, much like a lot of, haunting episodes was that I think at some points they were contacting the 10-year-old boy because they did find out that was a real kid that had died, and I think every now and then they were talking to that kid, but most of the time I think every time that Tawny was using the board, because she used it by herself, which you're not supposed to do, then it was the evil guy pretending to be that kid, right? So that was kind of like the whole premise, but I kind of wish they had done more with that guy because you really don't see him. You see him once in like a dream sequence where he's like in the hospital where Tawny went because she like hit her head or something, and like he comes and like cuts her head off. You know what I mean? But it's just a dream. And then like you see him again like at the end, but that's about it. Like you only see him like a couple seconds, and that guy had such a cool look, and I kind of wish they had done more with that.
Sticks has asked me what a 90s 10 was. Okay, a 90s 10 was shorter, curvier, blonde hair with the parted on the side, with a tongue ring, a fucking belly shirt with a fucking belly ring, and Jankos. Never. And remember those girls? The raver girls with the fucking Jankos. That was like a 90s 10.
Fucking Jankos.
Remember those?
Well, yeah, of course
each fucking pant leg was like a waist of a jeans.
They're ridiculous pants.
It's like they're walking around in two skirts, a skirt on each leg.
Yeah, it's a skirt on each.
And whenever you saw those girls, they were just sitting down all the time, smoking cigarettes. And then they get up walking. It was like a tent walking away. It was a trip, man. I like that shit though. It was cute back in the 90s.
Well, I mean, if you were like a tiny skinny girl, it was cute.
Well, no, they were just cute, man. Fucking, they were cute. I remember them.
I'm just saying, you got a lot of drag, like walking in those. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was like slowing you down because it was so much fabric.
I'm gonna see if I can find what I'm talking about. I'll show you. Go ahead.
But yeah, so I don't think this can't have been the first movie that was solely focused on a Ouija board. I was trying to remember. I know there were some like prior to this, but you know, obviously The Exorcist had that shit too because, you know, she was talking to Captain Howdy on the Ouija board.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like The Exorcist went into, I don't know if they actually used the phrase that they use in this movie, which is progressive entrapment. You know what I mean? Where the ghost like starts being handy and like, you know, being friendly and like doing shit for you. Like in this particular movie, it's like, oh, hey, you're that wedding ring or the engage.
I found it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, never mind.
Oh, I distracted her.
Just go.
Look, sitting down and everything. Sitting down and everything. Can't see it, but that was the 90s 10. Okay, go ahead.
I forgot what I was talking about. I guess it wasn't important.
Well, if you can't remember it, then it wasn't.
Well, yeah. Well, I could have.
You can't remember it. You can't. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know, because you're not listening. You're too busy looking for random pictures.
Random pictures. So I'm just trying. Okay.
No, I was saying what it was that Yeah, like the first thing, like when she first started using it, like it was being helpful. Like it was telling her, like, this ring that you lost, it's like in the sink drain, and she pulls it out and she's like, oh my God, it's really in there. And it's like, so, you know, so it was helping her out, and it was trying to like get her to like use the board more. It was like pretending to be this little kid. And then like she started acting weird, but then like she started swearing a lot and being like really cranky and shit like that. But then she also thought she was pregnant, and then Jim thought she was pregnant, so they thought that's why she was acting like that, not like she was possessed or nothing. So it was that kind of thing. Now here's another thing that I kind of thought that they were going to do, and then they didn't do. Because for a while in the movie, she thinks that she's pregnant. And because there's like, at the beginning, there's this whole setup where they talk about reincarnation, because they're talking to this kid, you know, through the board, like the ghost David, whatever. They're talking to him, and he's saying, oh, well, you can come back, but you can like choose your parents. So I thought her being pregnant, I thought that was going to lead to like the demon or the ghost or something like that wanting to like come back in her baby. You know what I mean? I kind of thought that's what they were leading up to. But then it turns out that she's actually not pregnant.
Yeah, I remember.
I think the reason that they had her be pregnant was so there would be like some plausible deniability, like why she was acting weird, like why nobody would immediately be alarmed that she was acting differently. Because they're like, oh, well, she's pregnant, and everybody knows pregnant bitches be crazy.
Yeah, it was just bad writing.
So it was something like that. But, well, I don't even know so much that. It just seemed like a missed opportunity. Because I thought that's what they were setting up. I was like, I thought that's what that whole reincarnation discussion at the beginning was about.
Well, it probably was going to go that way, but then
maybe.
Then they didn't have the money to shoot certain scenes, so they changed it. It was probably all it was. Because I remember when that happened, I was like, oh, they're not going that way? Okay. But, no, I thought that it was going to pop out of her baby.
Yeah, see, so you weren't, so I wasn't the only one that thought that. Because I thought that's why they were setting that up.
I'm pretty sure it was going to.
Maybe.
But then they couldn't afford to do that.
Because I think the original version of this script was much longer. I think it was almost like, like twice as long as it ended up.
Whenever a good idea happens and then they don't go that way, I immediately go, oh, okay, they couldn't afford to do that.
Maybe that's what it
usually
was.
How it was.
Maybe that's what it was. Yeah. But it just, because it did definitely seem like they were trying to set that up very, very deliberately.
I guarantee you they were going to try to do that.
Yeah, because what would have been the point then of like the whole discussion with David, the ghost, like, oh yeah, I can pick my parents.
But they already shot that material and they weren't going to throw it away, so they had to change the story.
Yeah.
The Italians did the same thing all the time in Giallo.
Well, that's true. Kind of.
Basically. They just shot whatever.
Although, a lot of those were actually based on books. So, like Edgar Wallace books and stuff like that. Like
I could have sworn we saw some programs where they shot some shit and they didn't know how the movie was going to end. They just kept shooting and they go.
Well, I don't even think that's not just Giallo movies. That's like a lot of movies. Like especially like independent movies. Right. You know what I mean? They're just kind of like, I don't know. They're just kind of like, well, let's just like see where it goes. You know what I mean? But so they shot part of this in Big Bear, up the lake and everything like that. That's kind of where they did the one thing. And then some of it was in the Higgins Verbeck Hirsch mansion, which I'm pretty sure, I think, wasn't Waxworks shot there as well? I know there was like a couple other horror movies shot at that same house. Here's another thing that was kind of, and I guess I wasn't the only person confused about this, because I was watching another review and they said they were confused about this too. At first, because the first scene is basically like the party, like where Brandon comes there and he brings the Ouija board and blah, blah, blah. And then like they're outside in the driveway and I'm sitting there going, wait, this is Tawny and Jim's house? Because Tawny does not appear to have a job and Jim just works on a construction site. I'm like, that's a fucking mansion they live in. Holy shit, how can they like afford that? But it took me a while, because it just looked like a regular house, but it took me a while to realize that this house was like a mansion, but had been converted into apartments. Because it was like probably half an hour into the movie before I'm like, oh, they live in an apartment inside this mansion because it's been converted, because they talked about the landlady and stuff like that. And the landlady was actually Rosemarie, who was on that old, man, what the hell was that old show that she was on? She wasn't in this very much either. but she was maybe in only a couple of scenes, which was kind of a shame because she's kind of cute. But she like played their landlord. But yeah, I mean, overall though, for some reason this movie always kind of like really stuck with me from the 80s, and that's why I wanted to like rewatch it, because I was kind of curious to see if it held up, because I saw it so many times back then, and I think it still does, but I can see why it has mixed reviews too, because if you're expecting like, ooh, balls to the wall, like 80s horror with all this gore and stuff like that, it's not like that. And it's not even, there's not even really a lot of nudity in it. Like, Tawny Kitaen's naked in it, but it's not, you can barely see it, you know what I mean, because the way it's shot.
You can see it.
You can kind of see it, but it's not like really.
You got an idea.
But you know what?
It wasn't gratuitous.
Right. You know what's interesting too is I feel like a lot of the shots in this has some like pretty creative shot compositions, and like the one shot, I think a lot of people make fun of it, where Jim like falls out a window at the end, and it looks like, and it's kind of like really bad green screen and stuff. But I thought, I'm like, yeah, it looks crazy, like it looks weird, but I thought he was homaging Psycho. Like that, you know, where he falls down the stairs at the end, where it's like, oh, I thought, because that's what it looked like to me, because there's some other shots in here that are very Hitchcockian.
I think it was just bad special effects.
Well, I don't know about that though, because like I said, some of the other shots deliberately looked Hitchcockian, and the guy was a film student, so he would have known about Hitchcock's film techniques, I would presume. So it does really seem like a lot of the shots in there were deliberately modeled after Hitchcock shots. And I think, like, I was even reading an old review of this from the time, like, back in the 80s, that said this is, like, a Hitchcock movie. So I can't be the only one that thinks that. But I'm pretty sure that last... Yeah, it doesn't look great, and especially it doesn't look great if you don't think that it's an homage to Psycho. But I think it might be, because it looks almost exactly like that angle and that shot and everything like that. All right, so you seem like you're getting all crabby and shit over there. Because you're going... you're doing like that shit over there?
No, I'm just...
All right.
No, I've been drinking.
Yeah, no kidding. So tomorrow we got to do a haunting Monday.
She's the end of the show. She's putting it on me. Okay.
Well, you know.
No.
You're not talking about.
Zach asked what a 2010 was. That'd have been something like Avril Lavigne with tight short shirt, good hair, and those white belts. Remember the jeans with the white belts?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been like that.
Yeah. So does anybody have any recommendations on what haunting episode they'd like us? If you don't, we'll just like pick one out of a hat or something.
Yeah.
Summerwind video version.
They want us to redo Summerwind?
I mean, we've done a couple shows about Summerwind. I mean, it's
one of our fucking top shows. People love Summerwind.
I mean, if you really want us to, but
I could do Summerwind again.
We could do Summerwind, or somebody asked us to do what was the one that was in where was it in Thailand? Hungry Ghosts or something? I think somebody asked us to redo that one.
Yeah, Hungry Ghosts was a good one. That's one of the better. That was one of the better episodes.
I mean, if you want to revisit Summerwind again, we can do. I mean, that's your favorite episode.
It was one of the first videos we ever did on this show. And, and the audio probably sucks by today's standards.
That's true.
We should go back and go look at that and see what we talked about and see what we missed.
I mean, I wouldn't mind doing that.
We could do it again.
That's a good episode. Or we could do Hungry Ghosts. We could
do both.
We could put them both on. Well, I mean,
not in one episode.
I was gonna say, let's not do that because I gotta go out of town for a job interview tomorrow. Yeah. I don't have a lot of time to be doing research on the shit.
We could do Summerwind.
Yeah, I mean, we gotta watch it tonight, and then I gotta take notes while we're watching
it.
And
we gotta go back and refer to the guy who owned Summerwind. No, it wasn't Summerwind. Who was? Yeah,
he didn't own it. Yeah. He was just
part of the restoration.
He was just like, he was
just on the show.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, long time ago, yeah.
But that's the thing. If we do another show about Summerwind, he might like call me up and be like, "Hey, I want to be on there" and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So it could be that. Like, I don't know how that's gonna work out. And like I said, it's really hard for like logistically. It's hard for me to like get guests on the show anymore because it's just kind of like everything's a pain, and I don't really know how it's gonna work out. You know. So I don't really want to open that can of worms. But yeah, so I don't know. We'll think about it, and I'll announce it sometime tomorrow. Like I said, tomorrow I got to go out of town in the morning, and then I'll be back way before the show, but I won't have as much time to do research as I normally would. But we will still be here at 6 o'clock doing the haunting show. So hopefully you guys will be able to join us. And thank you for joining us today talking about Witchboard. It's actually on Tubi if you would like to watch it for free. I don't know if the other two are on there, and I don't even remember if they're any good. So don't come at me if they're not. But yeah, so we will see you guys again tomorrow evening. Good night.